started to make art when I was 4 years old. The why is I've always loved it since I was a kid. It's kind of traveled with me through time. I come from a family of different makers that have different styles, but those influences influence me to continue and grow, and I just combine their superpowers, and I'm actually making my family shine right now.
I started drawing in my closets and on the walls at my house when I was 4, and I never stopped drawing. So, and I can go into why now I do it. It helps me process my life. I think it's good medicine. It's sort of like a yoga practice through visual arts.
I have been painting and drawing as long as I can remember. We came up in the Washington, D.C. area. My mother was a nurse, and she raised 4 children by herself, so I've been painting from forever as I can remember, encouraged to be creative.
I started in 2000 when one of my aunties passed away. She was our family historian. And I just did not want all that information to be lost. So I decided to visualize all those names and people and made a huge family tree. That quilt is 10 feet by 10 feet. And that's what I started, telling not just the faces of the people in the family, but what they did, how they were related. And then it just grew from doing my family quilt to a quilt about myself, about my mom, grandparents. And then as I moved out of my biological family, I started making quilts for my immediate community. And gradually the quilts became about places, people, events in our state, as well as in our nation. So like a rock, you throw it out into the water and it ripples. You start by telling the story of who you are and then just let it move out. So that was in 2000. Since then, I've done over 300 quilts in the community.
So I'm a mixed media artist. I've kind of expanded after getting my master's from Micah. So I do sound, video, film. I do tend to gravitate back to collage a lot. So I like messing with wood and all kinds of different textures. I think it's the layers for me that kind of emphasize the storytelling element of it all.
It's changing and evolving all the time. So I say mixed media, mostly visual art, and but I also am a writer, and I've also been working with some sound artwork. So I fold them all in together. So I work on a lot of different things and hope to learn some new skill sets as well. I've never been able to sit down and draw something the way somebody else sees it and it look exactly like what you would see. And I think because of that in my family, they thought that maybe I wasn't an artist, and so I thought I wasn't either. But I learned that whatever I couldn't draw, I could photograph. What I couldn't photograph, I could do digitally. What I couldn't do digitally, I could collage. And so whenever I had a problem, I would have to solve it by learning how to do something else. So that's why I ended up, or do end up doing so many different things, because I have problems in terms of things I can't accomplish, and so these are how I solve those problems.
I like to work with what the particular thing that has caught me into creating. So you may find me doing oils or acrylics or pastels. I am an emotive medium user, and I am often led by what has moved me to make the work of art.
Everything, whatever. And I think about this technique is one, it's what we're the best recyclers in the world. And I save pieces and objects from the past and put them on. You can use anything. And if you look at the quilts, I have objects that I use over and over again. Angels show up a lot. My grandmother told me when I was very young that God looks over you and he sends angels to protect you. And they oftentimes come in the form of flight, butterflies, birds. So you'll see those as reoccurring, images there. But the work is, when you look at that one for my self-portrait on the end, I am a self-portrait. There are divisions in place from I was born in the 1940s, and then I was born, my mother was colored the word used to identify people who look like me. When I was born, it was Negro. When I started teaching in the 60s, it was Black. In the 70s, it was Afro-American, lowercase, hyphenated. In the 70s, we became Afro-American, get rid of the hyphen, capitalize the words. And in the 90s, we became African-American. So it always has been this thing with me that who gets to define who I am? These are all signifiers of identity. You don't know me, you don't have the right to have me to respond to whatever you decide you're gonna call me. I am a person, I am human, I am me. And I have a voice, and my work is my voice. And I work very hard to help other people to find their voice.
My focus currently is driven through my mother, my grandmother, my ancestry, my lineage. Those stories I try to project. I do dive into social activism, so my Blackness itself is always the story, and I'm always pulling from it to create a narrative that might be seen or unheard. It's a gift that I shouldn't take for granted. I don't ever try to take it for granted. I think what I hold is very powerful. It is for the people. It is not mine necessarily to own, but it is a gift to give to people. And I just take that in spirit.
It has a lot to do with me, a lot to do with my stories growing up. Some of those stories took place here. I went to school next door. And when I was young, I went to the library. My first library was here. But I do use my work also because I'm a historian and a storyteller, and sometimes the best way for me to tell portions of the story is visually. Some of the work that I do, there's a piece over there, and it's a photograph of a doll, and I do a lot of work with dolls, and they are the vessels for these stories that I tell about American history, particularly Black people in the United States, the indigenous populations, and other groups of people that would come to the States and were disenfranchised when it came to power, when it came to land. So my work is very much rooted in looking at the history of my ancestors and those people that were enslaved in death camps, which some people call plantations. All of those things are some of the things that I work on to tell a story.
I've learned to focus on themes. For instance, the pieces that we're standing in front of now. This is a Ghanaian son pays homage to his mother. And in the late 1990s, I had the opportunity to travel as the Getty Fellow to West Africa to study in Ghana. And so these are my memories, the things, the aesthetic forms that came forth. And some 20, 30 years after, I'm still thinking about how these things lead my art making. The idea of heritage and memory are two pervasive themes in my work. The idea of ancestral veneration, of multi-rhythms, polyrhythms, polycentrism, the sense of time within a work. All of these things are important to me in creating works of art. So the idea of family and resilience, telling the story so that future generations like my son will be able to recall and be moved to carry on based on being able to look at the art and understand what it is celebrating.
I think one of the reasons that I do this is because I realize that we each have a story that needs to be told. And I can only tell my story, but I have techniques and ways of helping you to discover your own story. So I come out of the civil rights in the 50s and the 60s, and people would say, "What are you?" And it's like human, a person, an American. If we take the word color off of the table, there's so many more things that you can say about who you are and the importance of it. So I have a voice, you have a voice, and I just want my voice to be heard within the context of our shared history.
I think the future is the new day. So I don't know what to expect really. I'm more of an intuitive maker, so I go by spirit. I don't move fast. I also listen to my ancestors, God, things that work inside of me. So I'm not a fast worker, but I see the future as tomorrow, and there's always something new to do tomorrow.
The thing is, so I'm in my 50s, and so one thing I can tell you is I have no idea what's going to happen next. That's the good news and the bad news. I don't know. I can say what I hope, and what I hope is I get to create. I hope that I get to have some studio space. Some of these are very basic wishes, but I really want to be able to do my own artwork and my own storytelling, and I want to be able to have workshops for students and for young adults that do restorative justice, social justice work, and also for students, especially now because I am a teacher. I'm right now teaching middle school English classes. A lot of our students are in trouble in a lot of ways emotionally after such an amazing uprooting of life, that being coronavirus. I want to be able to have workshops for adults and for students so that we can process some of that stuff, and so you can get together and meet people that want to ask some of the same questions, or just all be weird together. It's just, that's what I want to do. So the medium that I'm interested in, because I do these dolls and I do the storytelling, I want to learn to do animation. And that's scary, and it sounds like it's going to be really hard, so I'm going to need to get some help. So I do want to learn animation, and I also would like to be able to construct more sculptures, like bronze. I don't know, but I do know I do want to do animation. But I'm excited to learn all kinds of stuff.
I'm getting old, so there are many folks. I'm trying to pass this on, and so many people I've worked with folks in my community, large communities, and these are all small quilts. Most of my other work is like 10 feet, 14 feet. They're huge. So I'm just excited that other people recognize that they have a voice, and you can use anything and everything to celebrate the people, places, and events that make up your life.
One of the most memorable professors that I had asked us very often, what happens when you make a work of art? How have you been changed? What has happened to you after you've made it? And every time I make a work of art, I often think about the fact that I got something out, something happened, the earth shifted. I have new knowledge, I've shared knowledge. So all of these things are important to me in making the work of art. You never are the same. Just being in humankind and understanding humanity and understanding who it is that I relate with, just trying to show love, emoting love, and trying to understand people getting at that same thing too.